Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Side Draft Media. My name is Don, your host. My co-host with me, as always, Ryan. Man, we are covering everything Las Vegas. We're going to recap everything that took place last weekend, and we're going to preview everything that's going on at Homestead. Ryan, we've got three race weekends left. What is going on? The 2024 season has been an absolute blur. Absolutely, man. Get a little choked up even talking about it. But man, the playoffs are just rolling right through. It's getting down to the nitty gritty. Drivers are really starting to figure out who's the cream of the crop. It's really rising to the top also as the playoffs move on. We've got everything trucks, Xfinity, and Cup, man. What do you got for me today?
Oh man, Don, another great race weekend behind us, and moving forward, we got all three series back on the track through the end of this racing season. As you mentioned, 3 weeks left, which is just mind blowing how quickly we got here. But yeah, I mean, I don't think we can talk about Homestead without talking about Vegas because man, what just happened? It is just mind-blowing how you had a driver in the likes of AJ Allmendinger. Let's talk about Xfinity first.
Absolutely.
A guy we thought was going to be lights out at the Roval. He did run really well there, by the way. But not a guy you necessarily had on your list to come out on an intermediate track where let's just call it as it is. Kaulig Racing had not been that great on intermediate tracks. They came out with a dominant 16 Chevy Camaro and won the race and locked themselves into the championship 4. Now I can toot my own horn a little bit because I had AJ Allmendinger racing for a championship in Phoenix as one of my picks. So congratulations, AJ Allmendinger, Kaulig Racing, and all their partners. They get to go They like to call it trophy hunting. Now they get to go hunt for the ultimate trophy,
Right.
which is a championship trophy on his final Xfinity season. Because we all know AJ is going Cup racing in 2025 full time with Kaulig. So just what a way to go out. They get to carry the torch to Phoenix as the first ones to lock themselves in. And it was an exciting Xfinity race. One that being perfectly honest, I did not have AJ Allmendinger winning that race, and it's just it was really cool to see. You could say somebody different. I mean, Dinger's been very consistent, obviously, to make it this far into the postseason, but it's neat to see somebody else get that win. Not your Junior Motorsports, not your who you think Joe Gibbs Racing there was,
Right.
Heck, even the Haas guys, run really, really well there. It wasn't any of those guys. You almost saw Ryan Sieg win this race. We got a good shout out Ryan Sieg Racing. Incredible run for that 28 team and Ryan. I really think if they had a couple more laps, they might have caught AJ. They really were coming on fast at the end of that race, but it's just incredible performance by them as well. Non-playoff driver.
Correct me if I'm wrong. Ryan switched cars for this race, didn't he? Didn't they?
Normally in the 38, I think.
39.
But
39.
they run a couple. Yeah. I'm sorry. They run a couple different entries too, so I don't know why they played musical cars, but at the end of the day, I mean, he still put up some results for his race team, and that's incredible to see.
Right.
As far as other playoff drivers, Justin Allgaier had a really solid finish in third. Jesse Love is in the top 10. Our picks were the Haas guys. Riley Herbst and Cole Custer finished 7th and 8th respectively. So we did see some of those. Chandler Smith was also in the top 10. Those guys that we were expecting to see there contending for wins definitely showed up and had good races. And then you flip to the Cup side. Whew. The way that this race played out, we had spoke of, and we'll just speak of briefly. We have to bring it back up because leaving the Roval or almost leaving the Roval was Alex Bowman in a playoff spot. And then because the car was underweight, we know that NASCAR penalized the team, disqualified, which means they lost the points. Joey Logano now in on points, exiting Charlotte Roval, goes to Las Vegas, where as far as the race is concerned, as a whole, we have to call it how it is. Christopher Bell and his Joe Gibbs Racing 20 Toyota was lights out dominant all weekend.
Yep.
The entire weekend, they qualified P1 on the pole.
Led over some laps.
They led so many laps, and that car was just so much faster, just so much more pace than the rest of the field.
Right.
It was Christopher Bell and everybody else.
Right.
But because of fuel strategy playing a factor, the 20 crew decided to pit Christopher Bell when everybody else that was contending for a win, in the top 6-ish, decided to pit, and then a lot of cars followed. It just so happened that, they didn't have enough laps to gun down Joey Logano, who decided to roll the dice and stay out. Now, even the commentary during the race was saying Joey Logano, a playoff driver, cannot afford to run out of gas here. Cannot afford to run out of gas because he's just going to plummet down the standings. But hats off to their strategists and that team for knowing that they thought they had enough to get there, especially if they caught a caution. They definitely thought they were good. They didn't need it. Joey Logano won the race. So a guy who was on the outside looking in temporarily at the Charlotte Roval comes into Las Vegas the first race after and locks himself into the championship 4. So credit where credit's due to Penske Racing, the 22 team, and Joey Logano for getting it done in Las Vegas. Those even year races that they talk about come to fruition, man. This Joey Logano thing is going to continue to play out into Phoenix with the even years, him getting into that championship 4. It's just, wow. And Christopher Bell did finish second. And again, a couple more laps, he would have had him. He was definitely way faster, like a second a lap faster than Logano was.
Right.
Just ran out of time. And as a guy who's listened to a lot of Christopher Bell radio over the years, this is one of the most upset I've ever heard him coming to a start and finish line to finish a race.
Absolutely.
You've got to be bleeping kidding me. Very colorful with that comment. I get it. When you're this deep into a playoff run and you had the car, anything other than a win this week, they even said it on top of the pit box during the race. Anything other than a win is just gutting. And it was for them. And the only thing they could take from it is that they've got a decent cushion, going into this weekend as far as points is concerned, because he did earn quite a bit of stage points and obviously finished really strong. But we need to talk before we go into Homestead. We need to talk about the implications that happened earlier in this race. We saw for the second week in a row, Tyler Reddick, your championship contender, a regular season champion, win stage 1 and have absolute disaster in stage 2, 2 weeks in a row.
Yeah, and you got to feel for that team. But at this point, it's been an abysmal playoff run for this 45 team, especially when they had one of the most consistent regular seasons we've ever seen in the Cup Series.
Now, abysmal as far as results, I will say this, and I'll give credit where credit's due. The last 2 weeks, they had a car on track without these issues that had the pace to contend for top 3 finishes.
Absolutely.
There's no question about that they brought a car that was contender to be a contender in the race and at least get those finishes that they've needed. On track incidents, though, have said otherwise. Now, we saw the drive of his life at the Roval, getting enough points to get in above the cut. And then, come here, they had confidence, they had pace, they qualified really, really well. They qualified P2. They were one of the most consistent cars in practice. And again, won stage 1. And then gets in a racing incident, and that's how I have to call it. I mean, you have two cars below you, and Martin Truex Jr. and Chase Elliott. Truex moves up the track a little bit. Elliott gets a little squirrely, getting moved up the track a little bit, and Tyler Reddick behind them, carrying momentum on a restart where you have to get these cars. It's hard to pass in general.
Right.
But when you're this bundled up on a restart and you have that energy, that momentum, where you might be able to get two cars in one corner, you've got to capitalize on that. And we all know Tyler Reddick as an aggressive driver. He's one to stick his nose where, he's going to take that chance. And let's just say 9 times out of 10, it's going to pay off.
Right.
On that top side where Tyler was putting his car, but this is that exception to the rule where it just didn't work, and it didn't work because of Truex sliding up into the 9. The 9 gets a little air loose, and just the 45 and the 9 touch. And it was actually the 9 touching the 45. It's just a process of elimination. There's no room there. 45 clips the wall a little bit, and here they go. They're wrecking. And then we just saw it looked like if it was all grass in that front stretch there, if it was all grass, I think both the 9 and the 45 would have had better days than they did. The 45 ends up clipping that Legends track, the short little piece on the inside that has that asphalt. That transition from grass to asphalt rolls the 45. It was like that slow, dramatic roll. And when he came back down, just broke the front suspension, even though he wobbled it into his pit box.
I might have to refute 45 being able to continue their day, only because when you watch the contact that the 45 made with the 6 before they got to the grass, that was a very hard hit on that left front of Tyler's car. And I think that's what broke that front end originally. Because when
possible.
That's just my viewpoint on it. I don't know exactly.
As soft as the steering and suspension parts are, and susceptible they are to damage, it's very, very possible. You're right. But I know when they rolled onto it, I watched the left front completely. The suspension just snapped. Now we know you could replace the tie rods on these cars, the steering linkage, but not the control arms, not the not the suspension components themselves, like the struts or the shocks in the front end. And, there was just too much. The car looked okay, believe it or not, for what it was.
Right.
The car didn't look half bad.
It could have been a lot worse.
A lot worse, but
we've seen it times where those windowsills actually catch the grass. And as soon as they catch the grass, that's when it sends it tumbling. I was so scared for Tyler in that moment because his car was directly headed for the window catching the grass. But man, however, caught just correctly to get him back on his wheels. He gave us a little bit of Dale Earnhardt Sr. Impression and drove the car back to his pit stall. Now, of course, we saw the violent, shaking and whatnot of that front wheel being broken. And we were like, okay, that's terminal. The car is probably going to be done for the day. But man, what a scary, scary ride for Tyler. And you watch his in-car camera before the antenna gets busted off and they lose the camera footage. It actually freezes on Tyler squinting. And you can tell that's when that first roll was happening. And he was like, oh, here we go,
Yeah.
So
it's wild.
It's one of those things where it was a racing incident. I don't think Tyler changed. Tyler even took responsibility for it in his once he came out of the medical center. I thought that was really interesting of Tyler. He's always taken responsibility, even when it wasn't his fault. Now, you even mentioned it's a product of the racing. I think Tyler saw the opportunity to take over two slower cars, and he's not thinking, oh, Martin's going to get tight and push up the track and it's going to cause this melee down. He's thinking, oh, I've got to run on these two slower cars. I'm going to take it. He didn't put his car in a position where it didn't fit. His car completely fit because he was obviously already getting by the 9 and the 19 by the time the 9 came up and caught him. So, it's just a product of racing. I don't blame Martin. I don't blame Chase. There's nobody's at fault. For everybody that was on social media placing blame, it was just a racing thing. Tyler didn't put a car in a bad spot. He put the car in the best spot, actually, that he could have put it in that situation.
Yeah, and you could hindsight 2020 this and Monday morning quarterback or whatever you want to call it. And Tyler even said in his post accident interview and taking ownership of what happened. And like you said, I don't think he needed to, because obviously it was clearly something that happened below him,
Right.
to take momentum away from those two cars for him to get that run. But what I will say about Tyler is and part taking ownership, I think, to his team, because he put that car there, not them, and he feels bad for them. But if he said the words, "If I had a little bit more patience, I wouldn't be standing here talking to you doing this interview right now." And that, while that may be the case, that's not Tyler Reddick. And he even said that that's just not who I am as a race car driver.
Right.
And, like I said, hindsight 2020, Monday morning quarterback, that's all fine and dandy. But if you were to go back and do it over and do it over and do it over
He would have
and
done
even
the same thing every.
interchange drivers, you're going to have probably a similar result, because just like you said, the product of the racing. And it just is a bummer for Tyler. But we talked about Chase Elliott. He had issues all day because of this incident. He had to end up having a really poor day. Ryan Blaney, another championship contender, also had an extremely bad day at Las Vegas. And even Denny Hamlin did not get the results that he needed leaving Vegas. So you have those four drivers that we just spoke of below the cut line, and Denny Hamlin is minus 27. Now, I want to talk about Joey. We talked about Joey Logano winning this race, but Joey Logano winning this race also stacked against those four drivers, because prior to Joey Logano inheriting the lead before the pit cycle, believe it or not, even though right now minus 30 is Tyler Reddick, before that pit cycle happened, Tyler Reddick was minus 8.
Yep.
Minus 8.
Yep.
Having all that bad luck, being way down in the minus 8. So flipping the standings and having a car that was below you in the standings go and win that race absolutely was the worst thing that Denny Hamlin, Tyler Reddick, Ryan Blaney, and Chase Elliott could have had happen to them, on top of the bad luck that they had running on the track.
Right.
Absolutely the worst thing. So here we go. Fast forward into Las Vegas, and you got those four drivers on absolute defense with backs against the wall, but they have to be defense and offense this week.
Yep.
There is no in between. You've got to absolutely bring it to Homestead. And we know too, if you unload slow, if you don't have pace, you're not finding that pace at the track.
Right.
You can find a little bit. You could find a tenth. You could find, but they need to unload fast.
Right.
Those four cars, they cannot show up to the track slow this weekend. Handling, sure, you could work on that at a track. You could get that a little bit better, but the pace itself, it's got to be there. So, yeah, I guess now we go into it. Let's go into Homestead. We'll circle back to these guys, but let's talk about the trucks for a second, because, we got the truck series coming in off a little bit of a lull, after Talladega. It's ridiculous. I say it's ridiculous because it's like, to me, I'm like having to rewind a couple weeks ago to talk about them. It's nice though that for the next 3 weeks we get the same guys all on the same track.
Right.
But if you remember back a couple weeks ago, it seems like ages ago, Talladega, Grant Enfinger wins that race, and now he's locked into the championship 4. So kudos to Grant Enfinger. He goes into he's one of 3 drivers this weekend going into Homestead with a little less worry in their in their mind. We got to talk about the rest of these trucks, because the standings are still pretty tight going into Homestead. If you look at the 5th place position, that's Raja Carruth. He's 5 below the cut line. I think this is a track that fits the 71 Spire truck and Raja. It's a track that
intermediate tracks.
Yeah. So if they're going to race their way into the championship 4, they need a strong showing here, because Martinsville is another one of those wild card races. and short track races that anything can happen. So, and it's just so hard to pass there, right? That's a track position, uh, track. And so this is the week. If you're an intermediate track driver or fan, this is the week.
Yep.
This is the week because I'll tell you, Homestead is home of some exciting racing. There's a definite 3 lanes in the corners that you can drive.
Right.
Passing in and out of these I call them long corners because they really are how they loop around and the banking.
Right.
It's a fun track. I love Homestead. So I'm excited to see these trucks out there. I mean, aside from Grant Enfinger being locked in, Corey Heime's plus 30 coming into the weekend. This is a track that absolutely suits his racing style, as well as Christian Eckes, who is plus 29.
Right.
Ty Majeski is only 5 above the cut line. So, that ThorSport truck is, and teams got to bring it this weekend. As again, you got that advantage now. You want to keep it going into Martinsville,
And
and make everybody behind you have to work twice as hard. I'm excited to see how this race plays out. You got Taylor Gray, Nick Sanchez, Tyler Ankrum down there, all fighting for chance to move up. And the truck race, we got a double header because the truck race is Saturday afternoon, and then we roll into Saturday evening, and we get the Xfinity cars back on the track. And man, they're exciting to watch. I could think and play back in my mind a couple Xfinity races that were championship races here at Homestead, and how exciting those were to watch. Ones that where we've seen guys like Tyler Reddick win back-to-back championships in different not for different manufacturers, but different race teams.
right.
We've seen him run extremely well here, and those races have been exciting. And that's one of the reasons why when we circle back into Cup, I'm going to talk about Reddick again because of his track history here. But looking at the cars that are remaining, I will tell you this: this is another one of those let's go get it done weekends for the Haas team.
Right.
Now, I won't say anything as far as bad. They had a top 10 finish. As far as Cole Custer's concerned, he's their playoff driver. Riley Herbst is no longer in. They had a top 10 solid weekend at Vegas, but they only find themselves 16 above the cut line. So your defending champion Cole Custer is not safe at any means. Needs a solid weekend here to go into Martinsville with. They want to get stage points. They want to stack their points as much as possible. Obviously, the ideal goal: win. Win. You don't have to worry about Martinsville.
Right.
Martinsville, you're going to go there, you're going to race, and you're going to Phoenix regardless. But, a win is not guaranteed. It's hard to do. So they need to go out there and get as much points as possible to assure them if they have a little bit of a blunder, they have a little bit of something to fall back on at Martinsville. But
Right.
only plus 16, not gonna be enough. Winning is their best bet to advance. And you look above him at plus 32 is Justin Allgaier. We've seen this cushion before with Allgaier at the end of the regular season, if you recall, Don, and it dwindled away.
Yep.
They seem to have gotten that bad streak behind them, though. That streak that lost them the regular season championship, that streak that had us questioning their tenacity as a team coming into the playoffs and how they were going to carry it. And I know you, Don, were looking at Allgaier and scratching your head and saying, when's he going to show up, or is it going to be enough? And I don't think it's going to be enough. And here he is plus 32. What do you think?
Plus 32 with Justin Allgaier is not surprising, and that given the fact that he's had such a rough go. They are very capable of collecting a large amount of points in a very short amount of time. That car consistently finds itself at the front of these packs, and he's very capable of getting those stage points when needed. I still think he has a great shot at a championship as long as he avoids the bad luck, which is what they seem to find more often than not. It's just going to be one of those we're going to have to sit down and watch, because with that 7 car, we never know what we're going to get. And that's what makes it exciting. That's why we tune in every weekend.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, one of your other guys for the championship four picks was Chandler Smith. He's +8. He's fourth in the standings right now, but only +8. I mean, that is just not safe at all. That has me worrisome, especially with a guy -8 in Austin Hill, very experienced driver chasing you, and Jesse Love, who I think is going to be one of my favorites for this weekend. He's my dark horse, actually. I'm
Right.
going to take him as my dark horse pick, is the number 2 in Jesse Love, 13 below the cut. But I'm going to go ahead and tell you right now, I think Jesse Love is a car that is going to be in contention for a win this weekend. Something about this place is just screaming, you can't overlook the 2 car. I'm going to go ahead and tell you that right now. Jesse Love is my dark horse pick to win this race, coming below the cut and lock himself into Phoenix. Oh man. Because man, does that jumble things up going into Martinsville. If a guy below the cut line makes it above the cut line, it locks himself in.
Right.
It
Everybody down one,
especially not knowing how this race plays out right now. And like you said, Allgaier could have a good race. He could have a bad race and find himself below the cut. Who knows? But you also got Sam Mayer and Sammy Smith. So 2 junior motorsports cars below the cut. And I think all the junior motorsports cars are going to run extremely well this weekend at Homestead. I think back to last Homestead's race, and you had the boss man in the 88 at Homestead last year, and he ran extremely well. He started at the back, had to drive to the front, had a really solid piece. All the junior motorsports cars were extremely fast that weekend.
Right.
And I don't think you're going to see anything different at all this weekend as well. So I already gave you my dark horse. Who do you got for this weekend as far as Homestead's concerned? Where's your head and heart taking you on your picks? And then I'll give you my favorite.
It's really interesting with Homestead because it really can level out a lot of these guys, the teams across the board. And you mentioned several of them. You're talking about your RCRs, you're talking about your JGRs, you're talking about your Dale Junior Motorsports, all very capable of unloading fast and putting a race car in victory lane. Now, the hard part is avoiding all the BS along the way. That way your car makes it to the end, right? So,
Right.
Love is a great pick. I would also look for Austin Hill to be making a lot of noise this weekend. He seems to run a little bit better with a little bit more of a chip on his shoulder than when he's kind of just out there riding around. And we've kind of seen that from Austin Hill, basically from the midway point up until the playoffs. He hasn't been, it doesn't seem like the same Austin Hill that we're used to seeing, the aggressive, just week in and week out and getting after it. He seems to have kind of taken a step back. Like maybe this is a different Austin Hill that he's trying to approach to go after a championship. I don't know. What I do know is I'm just way more used to seeing an overly aggressive Austin Hill where he's either finding himself on the wreckers or he's finding himself in victory lane. And we just haven't seen that as much in the back half of the season. I hate to play the parrot here, but I might have to go with an RCR car as my dark horse and Austin Hill. And that's why I spent so much time talking about him just now, is because I really think he's capable of going out there and making sure he's got a legitimate shot at a championship after leaving Homestead. So go ahead and give me Austin Hill as my dark horse. No less do I bring up this name because Chandler Smith being in my final four, but JGR, man, they always unload well here. And Chandler Smith has been a little bit more quiet than not lately. So look for Chandler Smith. If I had to pick a winner, give me that 81 car. I know he's got the youth kind of weighing him down, the lack of experience, but what better way to get your experience than getting after it with all these boys and figuring out how to do it, figuring out how to win. I say give me the 81 car as my main pick to Homestead.
I can't argue against either of those. And, while I look at some of those championship top 4 contenders right now, they're in the top 4, and I already spoke of Allgaier, his consistencies, inconsistencies, and Junior Motorsports going to run really well here. Historically speaking, is why I wanted to go RCR, and you can't overlook the 2 car and even like you said, the 21. But my favorite to win is actually coming from below the cut. I'm looking at none other than Sam Mayer. The RCR cars, I think, are going to unload extremely fast. Now, this could absolutely be Justin Allgaier winning this race and locking himself in as well. But I'm going to take the one car in Sam Mayer. I like how they've been running of recent, and just none other than every time this kid seems to have his back against the wall, he's able to put up a little bit. And this is his last season at RCR. He's moving on next year. He'll be driving for a Haas factory team in the Xfinity series. But it doesn't mean that he's not swinging the bat and still racing for a championship this year with this team.
Right.
And I really think that it's going to surprise a lot of people, but Sam Mayer wins from below the cut and pushes another playoff cutoff race scenario where, we saw this already in this playoffs with him. Here he comes again. And now you have a guy possibly like Chandler Smith or Cole Custer below the cut line.
Right.
And, that's, what more drama do you need going into Martinsville, right? Than seeing two of the more consistent cars throughout the season possibly get bumped below the cut. Now, you can make
who won the last short track for Xfinity at Bristol, Mr.
Yep.
Cole. So,
yes, but Bristol is a different animal than Martinsville,
right.
And even team and crew members from the Stewart Haas Racing guys will tell you that is why they circled this track. I still think Cole's going to go out and have an exceptional run. Hopefully he can avoid any bad luck, and he can work on his plus 16 there. But yeah, this is one that they definitely want to go out and get because of those guys like Sam Mayer, Jesse Love, Austin Hill, who can go out and even win out of Martinsville. So, and Sammy Smith too. Can't forget about him. He's had an absolute bad start to this playoff run. He's minus 53. Absolutely needs to get a win.
Right.
So, and they know that they got 2 weeks to win a race.
Right.
So, we'll see how it shakes out. You can make a case for almost anybody in the championship 8 right now because they're all trying to take their best approach, at the plate and get a hit. That's it. They need to produce, and they know it. So
Right.
I'm really excited to tune in Saturday night to see how these guys shake out. But really excited for Sunday because the drama of what we're seeing shape up, I should say, to play out for what is Homestead. And Homestead is a track where I want to talk about something, where we have these guys in the top 8, right? But remind us, Don, how many cars are on the track at the same time in the NASCAR Cup Series?
We get 38 cars racing every single Sunday.
Absolutely. So, we're only speaking of 8 of them in the playoffs right now, but I want to throw a little nugget at you. And I looked at the entry list for this race, and that is why my dark horse for this weekend is not a championship contending driver.
Okay.
And I'm going to go ahead and tell you right now, I'm going to hit you with this in the NASCAR Cup race, by the way, guys. If you're just tuning in, NASCAR Cup race, my dark horse to win is driving the 16 Colleague Racing car in AJ Allmendinger. In a sample size, since we've been in this next gen car, we have had AJ Allmendinger in the last 2 races. I want to tell you that AJ Allmendinger has finished 3rd and 5th in this next gen car at Homestead. He absolutely shows up at this track in this next gen car. His pace. I look back at his pace. I looked back at where he was at the stages, where he started. This is we only have had a small sample size of the next gen car at this track. And he didn't run this race from 2018 to 2022 was when he was back into the race.
Right.
So, there was a gap there in the NASCAR Cup cars for AJ. But he does lead all the active drivers with the best average finish in the last sample size of 3 races. That's what I wanted to look at because really this next gen car matters here. And I wanted to kind of get out as much as I could the old car because they're different animals here.
Right.
And so, yeah, I'm going to go ahead and get that out of the way. My dark horse to win this weekend is not a playoff driver, which really, really shakes things up if that's the case. I really, really love what I see out of the 16 of AJ Allmendinger the last 2 years here, and I don't think this week's going to be any different. So then you look and take this into consideration. Well, that doesn't help Denny Hamlin, Tyler Reddick, Ryan Blaney, Chase Elliott if they're not able to go down here and get a win. Then they're really up against it come Martinsville if they don't get the stage points that they need, because
Right.
you need stage points at this point.
Yep.
Denny Hamlin is in 5th, 27 below the cut line.
Right.
Now, I'm not saying it's impossible to point your way in there because you could have misfortune from one of those other top 3 guys that aren't locked in.
Denny need the most insane amount of bad luck from the 4 drivers, not only in front of him, but he would need a lot of bad luck for the drivers chasing him. So he's not just looking ahead to the driver.
Yeah.
He's got people behind him that still could knock him out just as easily as anybody keeping him out of the top 4. So you're
Sure thing.
You're Tyler
Sure
Reddick.
thing.
And then you talk about Ryan Blaney and the run they had at Homestead last year. That car was stupid fast last year. He could just as easily flip the script and get that W, and Denny Hamlin finds himself another spot below the cut line,
Yeah.
And let's not forget that Denny Hamlin has had a just awful playoffs. I mean, this has been incredible, and Denny seems different than he has during other playoff runs. He just seems so much more at peace with the rough results. When we listen to him talk post race and we listen to him talk on his podcast, he just seems real chill. It's almost like he thinks Martinsville is his ticket into the Final Four.
And it might be.
It really might be, absolutely, because he's very capable of going out there and smashing the field and finding himself racing for a championship. But we got 37 other guys that want that Martinsville grandfather clock like Denny does. So you still got to go out there and do it, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And to try to stack your eggs into one basket is just asinine, in my opinion, because because you have so many other cars that are capable of going out there and winning,
Right.
and because you just flat out haven't had the pace to go win a race right now. I mean, not since maybe Richmond has this guy really had pace to win a race, and he didn't win that one. So, it's just it's a head scratcher. But to try to say, if you're Denny Hamlin or Tyler Reddick, 27, 30 below the cut, I think there's a mathematical path to point yourself in.
There is.
Because even if you have a winner this week and next week that weren't Joey Logano, that lock themselves in, somebody's got to point themselves into the championship race.
Right.
So there is a mathematical path. However, it gets harder by the race, especially when you're that many points below cut. Now
it gets harder by the stage. Let's call it
stage.
What it is.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, and you speak of that because Ryan Blaney is 47 below the cut. I think math is out of the equation now for Ryan Blaney.
Correct.
I'm also going, and I may be wrong, but I don't think I am, because you play out what you would need to have happen, and we got to talk about and I'll talk at Chase Elliott too, 53 below the cut. Dude's got to go win a race.
Yeah, there's
there's no point in yourself in with those 2 guys, in my opinion.
The next 2 weeks, the 9 strategy the next 2 weeks is not playoff points. They are going to be setting themselves up to put that car at the front of the pack in the last 2 laps of the race in order to have a chance to win, because points aren't going to get it done.
Right. And when you're below the cut and you're looking up above you at a William Byron or a Kyle Larson or even a Christopher Bell, who have a lot more points than you do right now, you're asking a lot for those guys to have bad luck at Homestead.
Right.
Because here's where I start to bring out more math. We talked about how good AJ Allmendinger's been here in the next gen car. Well, we need to talk about William Byron. William Byron has an average finish of 5.7, and he also has a win here in the last 3 races.
Yep.
So, we got to talk about him. We also got to talk about Kyle Larson. Now, if Kyle Larson didn't be over aggressive last year, he's contending for a win in that race last year.
Right.
And for those who don't remember, trying to eat up the differential of racing surface basically between him and the 12 car, the amount of time between the two when they were coming into the pits. Kyle tried to outbrake the 12 car and eat up that differential. Well, the 12 car held his line, which he absolutely had the right approach into the pits.
Right.
Hold your line. I mean, you're entering pit road. It's supposed to be, for the most part, single file there anyway. He definitely had the real estate. He was there first. And Larson tries to shoot it, has to dip to the right last minute because he could not get it wound up. His option was either plow directly into the 12 car or hook it left and spin out and hit the inner wall, or try to hook it right and either go another lap around, or in this case, he ate the barrels at the end of the pit road. And Larson ruined his race car. He clipped the rear of the 12. A little bit of damage there to the 12, but Larson was done for the day. Yeah, I mean, those two were contending for a win at that point. At that moment in the race, it looked like the 12 and the 5, right? And then there was also a guy lurking by the name of Christopher Bell, who had a very, very fast car last year there as well, and ended up winning the race. Bell did when the 12 and the, whether it's, you want to say capitalizing on misfortune of others or just still running a really solid race strategy and having a lot of pace in that car. But we need to talk about him too, because he is also a driver up there who runs really well.
That's one of the things I love about Christopher Bell and that 20 team is they don't rely on other people's mistakes. They go out there and take their points and they move on to next week comfortable and feeling good. They don't mess around with this. They don't hang around out back at Atlanta and Talladega. I'm not going to mention any names, Denny Hamlin, but they go out there and take care of business. And that ultimately is going to win you a championship before playing it safe, like some of these other drivers have been doing and finding themselves in trouble.
Yeah, I mean, Bell and Adam Stevens have a really good relationship from driver to crew chief, and they both carry a quiet confidence about them every single week at the track. They just show up and produce.
Right.
That's 9 times out of 10. That's what they do. It's an off chance that they have bad weekends, but right now I don't think you're going to see that. I think you're going to see another 20 car unload and be bad fast all weekend.
Right.
This is a track that Bell absolutely loves. He gets around really, really well. He obviously is the defending race champion, and I think he's going to be driving a little chip on his shoulder from last weekend because he knows he should have won that race. It just didn't work out that the best car wins, but had strategy worked out a little differently, maybe they did, but they didn't. That the fact is they finished second. He's not safe and locked in. He needs to go out and get it done, and that's what they're going to do. He puts it behind him, and he's on the Homestead, and we know that they're going to be good here.
Right.
The other 2 playoff drivers that pop though in the we spoke of Kyle Larson. He's extremely well here, but he's tied, darn near tied for the best average finish with Tyler Reddick. This is a track that suits Tyler Reddick. And I'm going to tell you right now, Martinsville just isn't as much. Now, I could certainly eat crow if 2311 unloads a rocket ship next week for him and he goes down there and wins a race. But I just have not seen those results from 2311 at Martinsville that you do at this type of intermediate track that is Homestead. This is the race for Tyler Reddick to make a play for his playoff life. He absolutely cannot afford to show up here without pace or without a top 5 finish and without stage points, and good stage points too. I'm not talking about trying to get that 1 point to finish 10th. No, he needs top 5 stage points in the first 2 stages, and he needs, ultimately a win.
Right.
But I mean, for the regular season champion to make it to that next round, he needs to have a good race. And we talked to the regular season champion. How about the defending series champion? Ryan Blaney can absolutely get it right at this track. And and actually going into next week, I mentioned this to you in a text message without even seeing how this race shakes out. Ryan Blaney's already my favorite for next week. I absolutely love the 12 car next week at Martinsville. It's a track that they won at last year, but we're not at Martinsville yet. We're at Homestead, and this is a track that Ryan Blaney definitely could have won at last year as well.
Right.
This is where their season really turned it around in this race, and in Martinsville next week, as far as a year ago for them, to propel them to Phoenix, and put themselves in contention to win that championship. So it, and Chase Elliott runs really well here too. Okay. But he just doesn't have, in this next gen car, he has not had the results as much as, some of these other drivers that are above him. And
Right.
that's concerning. In the next gen car, Chase Elliott has finished 14th and 15th, 15th being the most recent. That is of concern. That is something that we need to, uh, as if you're a Chase Elliott fan and you're listening, you need your team to show up this weekend too. Now, certainly Martinsville is a better track for Hendrick Motorsports, um, to where it might be a better track for him next week for that desperation, I need a win type of thing, winning in. But
But keep in mind,
man,
other teams and drivers in desperation mode too, and they're not just going to let that 9 roll into victory lane without.
Exactly. That's exactly it, Don. And it's just, and besides that, if I had to pick a favorite for next week that's out of the Hendrick camp, it's William Byron. So, it's not the 9 car. It's not, maybe the 5 car, but not the 9 car. Just those results have not been there. It's just like, I am just, it's a wait and see thing with how this race is going to play out. These points shake up. Sure, certainly you can see the 5 or the 24 have bad luck, but you can't count on it. And the 20 even you can hope for it. If you're one of those guys, I mean, I'm certain, as a race fan, I never want to see somebody have an accident, and accidents are always pose a risk of injury. And, as somebody who works within this sport, or just, as a human being who wants to respect others, I never want to root for that for the sake of the
Right.
chance of a potential, bodily harm. But, misfortune to one of those other teams this week could be those guys out on the outside looking in, trying to pounce. We'll see how it goes.
I mean,
But
they're going to need
I
some.
honestly feel like the 11, 45, 12, and 9 have got to circle this track as we need to win.
Right.
So with that said, who's your dark horse? Who's your favorite?
So my dark horse is going to be an interesting one, and it's because actually both of my picks, and we haven't mentioned either one of these guys, and neither one of them are in the playoffs. I think we're going to see.
Ooh, I already gave you one non-playoff driver, so yeah, I want to hear yours, and I got to give you my favorite then.
Absolutely. I think what's really interesting is how much more the non-playoff drivers want to play spoiler and go in there and steal these trophies so that guys aren't just running all over them, right?
Right.
You're not in the playoffs. You're like, you got an even bigger chip on your shoulder to go steal trophies and make it harder on these playoff guys. We've seen it all the time with football teams playing spoiler week 15, 16, and 17 in the NFL. We see it with the NBA where teams are coming down to half games of missing the playoffs, and your bottom of the barrel team will go in there and beat you and you miss the playoffs by a single game. So why not NASCAR, right? So this is a Toyota that we haven't mentioned and who has the potential to go in here and really just shake things up, and that's got to be that 54 of Ty Gibbs. Ty Gibbs is still looking for that first career win. I know he doesn't want to let his year 2 go by without getting that W for him and his team, for his owner, his et cetera, et cetera. You name the reasons. Ty Gibbs is hungry. We also haven't mentioned what Blaney did for Joey Logano and assisting him in getting that win last week. Ty Gibbs,
the 20 a little, yeah.
Right, which is a very legal and very, very used move that we've seen with teammates through the years. So Ryan Blaney, I saw it on social media. He didn't do anything that any other teammate hasn't done for a teammate in the past. Get over it, guys. Like, teammates help each other out. Let's just call it what it is. Ty Gibbs, unless he has the opportunity to help, your Denny Hamlins or whatever the case is, get in a better position to win, definitely look for that 54 car to get in there and steal one of these trophies, man. I mean, he's got the capability, he's got the equipment. He just has to have those dominoes fall in line. Give me the 54. I'm not sure if he's running Monster or the He Gets Us car this week. But give me that Toyota Camry and Ty Gibbs as my dark horse. And I'm going to throw another non-playoff driver at you that's been running just better and better every week as these playoffs have gone by. And some can call it a homer pick. Some can call it, an educated guess, whatever. But that 23 car of Bubba Wallace and 2311, they are getting better each week. Now, I know they don't want to let another season go by without a W under Bubba Wallace's resume. And from what I've seen from Bubba, he's gotten good at road courses too. I mean, he is flat out letting everybody know, hey, I'm not going anywhere. I got my new contract and fresh ink, and I'm ready for some trophies. I'm ready to play spoiler for the rest of this season and shake things up going into 2025 with a brand new contract. So if I had to go for a main pick, I think Bubba Wallace, and especially the last couple of weeks, ever since having his baby, I think that kind of changed his mindset on life and what's important. And I think if he can let go of some of the stuff that's not as important, it's going to make his driving career a lot more smooth. That's just my view on it. So give me the 23 car. Maybe some people will call both of them dark horses, but I like his chances. And I think that Toyota's going to be really fast when they get there this weekend.
Yeah, I think there's going to be a handful of Toyotas that are really fast there this weekend.
Right.
I know Bubba qualified strong and finished pretty decent last year.
Right.
So yeah, I can definitely see it. There's been a handful of drivers we've seen intermixing with these playoff drivers that are trying to shake things up. Now I look at how the track's played out the last couple years. Especially with the next gen car. And that's one of the reasons why, you can't shy away from the number glaring at you that AJ Allmendinger's been able to impressively put out there
Right.
with an average finish of 4th in the last 2 races. That's insane. And that's one of the reasons why I opened with he's my dark horse this weekend. My favorite for this weekend is going to be the guy who you can call it a homer pick as well. But it's the guy who should have won last weekend, in my opinion, had the best car, lights out, and definitely won last year's race here and advances in by not having to worry about points at Martinsville as Christopher Bell. I really think the 20 team is going to be dialing in all 8 the last couple of races of the season. He knows that if he gets to Phoenix, he's got a car capable of winning that race. We saw him get that. Phoenix has been a track that has been one of those tracks that kind of bit him a little bit here and there, especially in those championship races. So to get that win in the spring and kind of get that Phoenix monkey off of your back, I feel like they roll into there with a lot more confidence. And I do believe the 20 does go to Phoenix running for a championship. It's just a matter of does he win himself in or point himself in. But I do believe that he wins this weekend and just, casts any doubts away and locks himself
Absolutely.
in. And there's other drivers you could certainly make an argument for as well. But it's hard to bet against that team right now, especially I feel like there's a little bit of extra momentum and a little bit of frustration
setting on
in
that 20.
there from last week at how that race finished. I've never ever heard him. I've heard him wreck cars and say sorry guys and like whatever and not be mad. He finished second and was PO'd. So I have not heard that much fire. Spicy Bell is watch out because the guy's a wheelman and we know he is a perennial championship contender in this series, but Spicy Bell might be a different type of bell on the racetrack. So I'm curious to see how it plays out. I'm really interested to see how it plays out actually, but yeah, he's my pick for this weekend. And you can consider it safe, homer, whatever. I don't care. I think the 20 gets it done.
And we talk about the homer picks, but we're going off of stuff we've seen in the past. And with your pick with Christopher Bell, everything's telling us Christopher Bell should go in there and win. Like that's just what the stats are telling us. with Bubba Wallace. Bubba Wallace is very, very talented at intermediate tracks. Now we've seen him get caught up in situations that might make his finish a little bit less telling of how good he actually is at these intermediate tracks. But that's anybody. That's any racer. That's not just Bubba. So, it's not just going off of, homer picks. These are educated guesses that we're putting into to what we're picking here. So definitely Christopher Bell is a great pick. I haven't looked up any odds yet, but if I had to guess, I would say Christopher Bell's probably got the best odds.
Yeah, I haven't looked at him yet either, but yeah, I would expect him to be one of the two favorites to win this race. And the other favorite would have to be Larson, in my opinion. Just with how they're running right now. If I was Vegas, and I'm not Vegas, I would have Larson and Bell probably my top two odds. It's dumb not to, right? That's like house money. Yes. Yeah,
I meant to elaborate on your Christopher Bell statement and how upset he was at the end of that race. I think that 20 team for JGR and Christopher Bell, they thought they were headed to Phoenix in the middle of that race.
Absolutely.
Right. So Christopher Bell's probably winding down laps, like just with each turn, he was getting more frustrated because they knew that car was headed to Phoenix and they got beat on a strategy call, which is a part of racing. A lot of people were like, oh, Joey Logano got lucky. No, they had a better strategy and they won. That's what it is. And did Christopher Bell have the more dominant car? Absolutely, 1,000%. Did Joey Logano have the better strategy at the end of the race? Absolutely, 100%. And that's why he's going to be racing for a championship.
Yeah, I mean, hey, sometimes you need a little luck on your side or strategy. You make your own luck, right? And
right.
That's, you got to applaud that, because when you don't have the car to win, but you have a car to finish 10th to 15th, and you could flip points, even if he didn't win and he finished second or third, that's way better of a day than he was going to have. So,
right.
And if he ran out of gas, then, oh, well, so be it. They know they have to go out and try to win at a Homestead or Martinsville. You got to take chances sometimes in the postseason. It worked out last week for them. And I'm not going to sit here and hate on it and dwell on it. And I know that the 20 team is doing the same. They got to move on. And, I'm really excited to see how the racing plays out this weekend. I know there's going to be something unexpected happen. Expect the unexpected, because that's what always seems to happen in these races. And that's what makes the NASCAR playoffs so interesting. But I'm anxiously waiting it, and it's going to be a fun weekend of racing. So excited to see how our picks play out too. I put the kibosh on my picks a couple of times, it seems like. So I apologize to Seabell and to AJ Allmendinger if they have a bad weekend because of me.
Now, they're great picks, man. I'm really looking forward to Homestead weekend with all three series running. It's going to be an action-packed weekend. I know we're getting really short on time, but man, we covered so much in this episode. Another great episode again, Ryan. Appreciate you and all the information you bring to everybody. But yeah, man, it's going to be a great weekend. I'm looking forward to it. And man, after this weekend, we're literally staring at 2 weeks left in the season, man. I can't believe it. Absolutely insane.
I can't wait.
But from everybody here at Side Drive Media, thank you guys as always for tuning in. Jump down there in the comments. Let us know what your picks look like for the weekend. We'd love to engage with you, find out what you're thinking, who you're rooting for, who you're rooting against. Let's talk about it, man. Get down there in the comments, like, subscribe, all that good stuff that comes with it. From everybody here at Side Drive Media, myself, Ryan included, thank you guys so much. Happy race weekend.